Hello, this is Miss Yetter, and we are continuing reading our book, Hollow City, which is the second book of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We are on chapter 4, so if you'll open your books to page 86, we shall begin. Addison walked on all fours with his snub nose in the air while the man thing called Grunt scampered around us like a psychotic puppy. From behind tufts of grass and the shacks scattered here and there, I could see faces peeking out at us, furry, most of them, and of all different shapes and sizes. When we came to the middle of the plateau, Addison reared up on his hind legs and called out, "Don't be afraid, fellows. Come and meet the children who dispatched our unwelcome visitor." One by one, a parade of bizarre animals ventured out into the open. Addison introduced them as they came. The first creature looked like the top half of a miniature giraffe sutured onto the bottom half of a donkey. It walked awkwardly on two hind legs, its only limbs. "This is Deidre," said Addison. "She's an emu raff, which is a bit like a donkey and a giraffe put together, only with fewer legs and a peevish temper. She's a terrible sore loser at cards," he added in a whisper. "Never play an emu raff at cards. Say hello, Deidre." "Goodbye," Deidre said, her big horse limbs pulling back into the buck-toothed grin. "Terrible day. Very displeased to meet you." Then she laughed, a ring, high-pitched whinny, and said, "Only teasing. Deidre thinks she's quite funny," Addison explained. If you're like a donkey and a giraffe," said Olive, "then why aren't you called a donkey raff?" Deidre frowned and answered, "Because what kind of awful name is that? Emu raff rolls off the tongue, don't you think?" And then she stuck out her tongue, fat, pink, and 3 feet long, and pushed Olive's tiara back on her head with its tip. Olive squealed and ran behind Brawin, giggling. "Do all the animals here talk?" I asked. "Just Deidre and I," Addison said. "And a good thing, too. The chickens won't shut up as it is, and they can't say a word." Right on cue, a flock of clucking chickens bobbled toward us from a burnt and blackened coop. "Ah," said Addison. "Here come the girls now." "What happened to their coop?" Emma asked. "Every time we repair it, they burn it down again," he said. "Such a bother." Addison turned and nodded in the other direction. "You might want to back away a bit. When they get excited, bang! A sound like a quarter stick of dynamite going off made us all jump, and the coop's last few undamaged boards splintered and flew into the air. "Their eggs go off," he finished. When the smoke cleared, we saw the chickens still coming toward us, unhurt and seemingly unsurprised by the blast. A little cloud of feathers wafting around them like fat snowflakes. Enoch's jaw fell open. "Are you telling me these chickens lay exploding eggs?" he said. "Only when they get excited," said Addison. "Most of their eggs are quite safe and delicious, but it was the exploding ones that earned them their rather unkind name, Armageddon chickens." "Keep away from us," Emma shouted as the chickens closed in. "You'll blow us all up." Addison laughed. "They're sweet and harmless, I assure you, and they don't lay anywhere but inside their coop." The chickens clucked happily around our feet. "You see," the dog said, "they like you." "This is a madhouse," said Horace. Deidre laughed. "No dabbling. It's a menagerie." Then Addison introduced us to a few animals whose peculiarities were subtler, including an owl who watched us from a branch, silent and intense, and a cadre of mice who seemed to fade subtly in and out of view. as if they spent half their time on some other plane of reality. There was a goat, too, with very long horns and deep black eyes, an orphan from a herd of peculiar goats who once roamed the forest below. When all the animals were assembled, Addison cried, "3 cheers for the hollow killers!" Deidre brayed, and the goat stamped the ground, and the owl hooted, and the chickens clucked, and grunted his appreciation. And while all this was going on, Brawin and Emma kept trading books. Brawin glanced down at his coat, where Miss Peregrine was hiding, and then raised her eyebrows at Emma to ask, "Now?" said Emma, shaking her head in reply, "Not quite yet." Brawin laid Claire in a patch of grass beneath the shade tree. She was sweating and shivering, fading in and out of consciousness. "There's a special elixir I've seen Miss Wren prepare for treating fever," Addison said. "Foul tasting but effective. My mom used to make me chicken soup," I offered. The chicken squawked with alarm, and Addison shot me a nasty look. "He was joking," he said. "Only joking. Such an absurd joke. Ha ha. There's no such thing as chicken soup." With the help of Grunt and his opposable thumbs, Addison and the emu Raff went to prepare the elixir. In a little while, they returned with a bowl of what looked like dirty dishwater. Once Claire had drunk every drop and fallen back asleep, the animals laid out a modest feast for us. Baskets of fresh bread and stewed apples and hard-boiled eggs of the non-exploding variety, all served straight into our hands, as they had no plates or silverware. I didn't realize how hungry I'd been until I wolfed down 3 eggs and a loaf of bread in under 5 minutes. When it was done, I belched and wiped my mouth and looked up to see all the animals looking back, watching us eagerly, their faces so alive with intelligence that I went a little numb and had to fight an overwhelming sensation that I was dreaming. Mildred was eating next to me, and I turned to him and asked, "Before this, had you ever heard of peculiar animals?" "Only in children's stories," he said, through a mouthful of bread. How strange, then, that it was one such story that led us to them. Only Olive seemed unfazed by it all, perhaps because she was still so young, or part of her was, anyway, and the distance between stories and real life did not yet seem so great. "Where are the other animals?" she asked Addison. In Cuthbert's tale, there were stilt-legged grim bears and 2-headed lynxes. And just like that, the animals' jubilant mood wilted. Grunt hid his face in his big hands, and Deidre let out a neighing groan. Don't ask," she said, hanging her long head. But it was too late. "These children helped us," Addison said. "They deserve to hear our sad story if they wish."
I gotta pass the library.
"If you don't mind telling us," said Emma. "I love sad stories," said Enoch, "especially ones where princesses get eaten by dragons and everyone dies in the end." Addison cleared his throat. "In our case, it's more that the dragon got eaten by the princess," he said. "It's been a rough few years for the likes of us, and it was a rough few centuries prior to that." The dog paced back and forth, his voice taking on a preacherly kind of grandness. "Once upon a time, this world was full of peculiar animals. In the Aladdin days, there were more peculiar animals on earth than there were peculiar folks. We came in every shape and size you could imagine. whales that could fly like birds, worms as big as houses, dogs twice as intelligent as I am, if you can believe it. Some kind of kingdoms, all their own, ruled over by animal leaders. A spark moved behind the dog's eyes, barely detectable, as if he were old enough to remember the world in such a state. And then he sighed deeply. The spark snuffed and continued. But our numbers are not a fraction of what they were. We have fallen into near extinction. Do any of you know what became of the peculiar animals that once roamed the world? We chewed silently, ashamed that we didn't. Right then he said, "Come with me and I'll show you." And he trotted out into the sun and looked back, waiting for us to follow. "Please, Addie," said the emu raft. "Not now, our guests are eating." They asked, and now I'm telling them, said Addison. Their breed will still be here in a few minutes. Reluctantly, we put down our food and followed the dog. Fiona stayed behind to watch Claire, who was still sleeping, and with Grunt and the emu raft loping after us, we crossed the plateau to the little patch of woods that grew at the far edge. A gravel path wound through the trees, and we crunched along it toward a clearing. Just before we reached it, Addison said, May I introduce you to the finest peculiar animals who ever lived?" And the trees parted to reveal a small graveyard filled with neat rows of white headstones. "Oh no," I heard Bronwyn say.